Okay, so that's my shot. So now Patrick's going to do the same thing.
All right. I'm a relative rate 3, but I get a +1 to my firepower because I have a white circle under my 3. So I'm a 5 +1, so I'm going to get a 6. Plus I get another point for my audacity because I have 1. So I'm at a 7 now. And I'm not. And are we doing the initial broadside or no?
No, yeah, I wasn't going to bother with that. There is, however, a scenario special rule in this one. I don't know if you saw this, Patrick.
I did.
Maybe
I
a
did.
bad time. Oh, okay. I was going to say I didn't want to spring it on you right now, but this scenario has a special rule because in a historical battle, the seas were pretty choppy out there. The wind was kicking up quite a bit. So this scenario has a rule that whenever you're firing with the wind, your firepower is decreased by 2, just to demonstrate, to represent the fact that the guns on the lowest deck of the ship couldn't be used. They had to keep those gun ports closed because they were going to let water into the ship otherwise. So I guess the net effect is you're +2, but then back down to -2, so it's a net +0 for you.
Correct. So I move over to the firepower, and down the bottom, because I'm a French ship, I get a +1. And because I'm firing with the wind, I get a -1.
So you are firing at the rigging.
Yes, I was firing at the rigging, so yes, +1 because I'm shooting up to his rigging, and -1 because I'm firing with the wind. So it really is just, again, a net 0.
Yep, okay.
Here's my die roll.
Well.
So we look to do 2 rigging and 1 hull hit.
Nice shooting, Tex.
There you go. That's the way to start a battle.
Bonchance.
Okay, so that concludes all that. So now you can continue and move the rest of your ships.
Okay.
Any questions up to this point? Anything we've covered so far?
At the very beginning of the... Go ahead, Arnold.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
At the very beginning of the round, you decided how you were going to do command decisions. What are your options as far as how your command is set up?
Were you, I don't know if you might not have been in there yet. I was talking about doing a formation and a group command. Did you hear that part?
Yes. Do you use different markers for that?
Oh, no. Yeah, there's no difference in the markers. They give you those command split markers just to show the divisions between commands if you need them. Usually you don't. I find you just tell the other guy, what you need or what you're doing, and it's usually pretty easy just to remember that. But there aren't individual markers to show what type of command is.
Okay, I have completed the movement.
I have a couple questions if you don't mind, real quick.
Quiet you.
Sorry, real quick, I just said there's one up here in the message window about, does the scenario determine which leader is the fleet leader? Yes. In the scenario setup, it tells you what the flagship is for each fleet. So whatever the leader is on that flagship, he's your fleet admiral. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, number 1, how many times can you shoot per turn? Number 2, what's your firing arc? And number 3, do other ships block line of sight for a shot?
Right. Okay. There we go. Patrick's showing you the firing arc right there. Basically, well, there you go. It's easier to show it than it is to tell it. It extends out to 10 hexes from the ship, and you draw that range basically from the bow and stern hex, just like that.
So by firing all the guns, doesn't the second ship in the arc get a hit too?
Well, no, you can only shoot at one ship. You just pick one target and you shoot at that. You don't really get to split the broadside between more than one target out there. You can, however, unlike some of the other naval games, you do get to fire both broadsides in the space of one turn. The reason is just because of the time scale. Depending on the scenario, the turns are usually representing either 3 to 5 minutes of time in real life time. So in the course of those 3 to 5 minutes, you could conceivably fire the guns on both sides. So whenever you move, you can fire both your port and starboard broadside. But each one of those just once during the turn. And then, sorry, what was the third one?
So his second ship there that just moved up next to the first ship, the Jason cannot fire.
Yeah, that's right, about line of sight blocking. Yes, ships, both with friendly ships and enemy ships, block line of sight. So the way you figure that is there's a line of sight tool if you need it in the Vassal module here. But you just draw a line of sight from your bow hex and your stern hex to his bow hex and his stern hex. If any of those are blocked, then it's going to become a partial broadside instead of a full broadside. If both of them are blocked, you can't actually fire at all. But if one of those is blocked but the other is not, then you're going to have a partial broadside, and it's basically just it's one of those relative rate modifiers. It's going to make your shot worse than it otherwise would be, because you're only firing basically with half your guns. No, Charles, no reload phase. I mean, it's assumed at the end of each turn you just clear off all the fired broadside markers. So there is that. I mean, you make all the broadsides fresh again for the next turn. But when I think of reload, I think of some of the other games where you have to specify, okay, I'm loading with chain shot or round shot or something like that. But there's none of that in Flying Colors. All right, so it looks like you got everyone else moved up here.
Yep, all good to go.
Okay, so it passes back to me for my second and last command. Or third and last, if you count my auto-command guy up there. Alright, so Graves' 4 ships are at full sails, so they're beating into the wind. Look on the full sails portion of that column, they start out at 3 and get 4 because of breezy wind, so I'll move them 4. I think they will still all just go up directly ahead of 4. And I think I'll keep them at full sails.
And I believe your recover button there will wipe everything out of the way and advance the turn marker, is that correct?
It just takes off those fired broadsides, so I will shoot it, or I will press it. I probably should make it, though, that it just clears off everything. That'd be easier, wouldn't it? Always gotta give me something new to do, Patrick, don't you? Fix this, fix that.
Hey, I don't want to start making comparisons to Joel, but, you know, you brought it up. Not like you've been busy moving and relocating and all that good stuff, too.
No, just child's play. Okay, so we're done with turn 2. On to turn 3. And time for another wind change, maybe.
You may do the honors this time.
All right. Nope, not gonna happen this turn. So looking at my command situation, unfortunately the Robust is still out of command up there. He's still too far away from Arbuthnot, so looks like I'm not going to be able to get him in command this turn. But what I will do with Arbuthnot is now I'm going to use him to form a group command instead of a formation. And I will go ahead and the same 3 ships as before, his ship and Prudent and Europe. Just use a group command, and that way you can get those 3 all in command.
Rob, there's a question again up there for you.
Oh, yep, thanks. Yeah, were you looking at when he was looking at maybe firing with Jason? He actually didn't have a shot there because, and I don't think we said this, but when you draw that line of sight, if it's going along even the hex spines, those block line of sight, so the hex spine between, what is it, 3834 and 3901, since that line of sight goes directly along it, it still blocks it for him. But I think you would have, I guess you could have taken a shot with Jason against Europe. Looks like you would have a partial broadside against him because your stern can see his stern, I think.
I don't want to waste the ammo.
Huh. Let's see. Oh, no, actually, looks like it's just clipping the stern of the Conqueror there. So I guess you didn't have one anyway. But yeah, Jim, normally that would be my philosophy too, I think, if you have a shot to use. And in that case, I think the only reason you wouldn't is if you might want to save it for defensive fire later. If you thought the other guy was going to move closer towards you, obviously that wouldn't be a worry here. So if you had had a shot, I would have probably said the same thing. Especially if there's a leader on board. Whenever a ship with a leader takes a hit of any kind, that leader has to make a roll to see if he's wounded, and then if he is wounded, he has to make another roll to see if he's killed outright. So that's definitely a case where even if it's a bad shot, it's probably not a bad idea just to take it and see what happens. Okay, you got your commands set there, Patrick?
There we go.
Alright. So, time for the next initiative roll. Here's mine. So 7 becomes a 9 for me. Ah! Look at you.
Oh!
Tied once again, and once again the tie goes to you.
I believe I will take the initiative this time.
Okay.
We'll activate the forward crew first.
So with Conquerons there, I don't think we've said this yet too, but whenever you turn, which is called wearing in the game, when you turn from running, or actually when you turn from running, reaching, or beating into anything else, it's called wearing. You have to spend at least 1 movement point before you do that. So you can do that.
That's what I.
Oh, well, go ahead and give him a waggle there so we can see where he ended up.
I haven't finished yet, but I couldn't remember if I had to move 1 point first before I did that. So let me shift him a hex north.
Well, but remember, you don't. The other way to spend that movement point is by backing sales. So you can back sales in your first hex, and then that fulfills the requirement, and then you can go ahead and turn.
Gotcha. Okay, so he has moved. He backsailed 1, turned, and then moved 4. So that should be his 6.
Yep. And yeah, the turn was from reaching to running, so that does not cost anything extra.
Wiggle, wiggle.
Oh, there he is up there. All right, well, we're getting close.
So I have 1 point left. Is that correct?
Let's see, you start out on 3801. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, looks like you spent 5. So you got 6, and I bet I know where you're going to go with that 6th.
Okay. And we will unload.
So I'm assuming because Rob didn't do it, there's no opportunity fire if you move close or something, right?
Well, that's the optional rule. I was saying earlier how the optional rule is that every movement point he spends triggers a defensive fire opportunity. If we were using that, then I would do that. But yeah, we're not using that. We're just going with the standard rule for right now. Okay, so you are ending your move right there then?
Yeah, and I will fire port broadside.
Alright, and you do, I probably didn't say this either, you do have to spend all your available movement points. You can't not use any of them. So, since you had spent 5 to get there, you would, by the letter of the law, you'd back sales to burn your 6th and final movement point right there. Okay.
Or I could turn into breezy, right? And
that's right. Yeah, well, no, you're turning from running to something else, so that's not going to cost you anything here.
but I could turn.
Sorry, I think I said the wrong thing at the start of your move. You were turning from reaching to running, and I was saying, oh, that didn't cost anything extra. That is the one that costs extra, though. Reaching to anything else is what costs extra movement points. So actually, you can still get to where you are. It's no problem. It's just that first turn did cost you 1 movement point.
Okay, so I figured I was where I should.
Yep. Yeah, you're good right there. You got enough to make it there. All right, so you're firing. So sorry, I had the wrong button pushed there. I was just saying, if I take this defensive shot with robust, it's only going to be a partial broadside, since only half of his ship is in my firing arc here. So my choice is, I can either take this shot, or maybe I'll save it, and maybe get a better shot at some other ship. Doesn't look like I'm going to get a better shot, though, so I think I'll go ahead and take the defensive shot right here. Alright, so now, going back to the firepower table. So I normally am a 3 relative rate again here, but now, when you look at the relative rate modifiers, you see there's +1 for partial broadside. So I'm actually at a 4 relative rate for this shot. So we have 4 at a range of 2, which which gives me a 7 for my firepower. So, and going down to the firepower modifiers, we are now close enough that carronades are going to come into play. And it has its own table. If you're on that card, it's just to the right of the firepower table. For carronades, everything that's on there that's listed is cumulative. So just look at the top and go down the list here. I'm British, and we are within range 3 or less. And, or actually, forget what, oh yeah, we are in 1781 here. So we are in a time frame when the carronades have come into play.
Not for the French.
That's right. So this is a situation here where I do have an advantage, where I've gotten bonuses the closer we get. So I do have a +1 to my firepower for carronades. If we were 1 hex away, I would get +1 for being within range 3 and +1 for being within range 1, total +2. So that's when those cumulative carronade bonuses really start to help out. But for right now, it's just +1, so my 7 firepower becomes an 8.
Aren't you 1 hex away?
Well, no, you count to the other ship's hex inclusive. So it's 34 is the first hex, and then 35, 33, or 34, 33 where he is, 2 hexes away.
Okay.
Still not a bad shot, might as well take it. So I'm an 8, and let's see. I think I'll stick with the rigging here. So I'm again shooting at the rigging. I am still shooting into the wind, so I get +1 for that. So I am an 8 +1. Here's the roll. Well, still not rolling too well there. 2 becomes a 3. Yeah, but that's 2 rigging, and that's enough to slow you down now, so I'll take that. Alright,
Okay.
so all of his movement allowances are now reduced by 1. So hopefully that'll help me out.
Question.
Alright, you may do your shot. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What is a rake? And from my understanding, it's where he can shoot at you, but you can't shoot at him. Is that right?
Well, you can. It's here. I'll move the ships here just to demonstrate a rake. So if he were like this, a
Nothing moved.
rake is when he's sitting. Sorry.
Wiggle.
Sorry, Patrick. I'm moving your ships. So the rake line extends down the length of the ship. I'm going to use the line of sight tool to show it. So there's the rake line. If the French ship were anywhere on that rake line, so he could be up there or even further down. Like that. As long as it's along that rake line, there's the possibility of a rake. It's when your guns can fire down the length of the ship and cause a lot of damage. You just think of it as it's showing, instead of the cannonball passing, straight in and out one side of the ship, it's traveling all the way down the length from bow to stern of the ship, and so there's more in the way that it's going to crash into and cause more damage. So it tends to be a more devastating shot. If there is a possibility for a rake, there's a rake table on the player aid card, and you just go to that and you make the roll and you see whether there is in fact a rake or not. If you succeed in the rake, it just makes whatever damage you caused is gonna, if it's a bow rake, you multiply by 50% any hull hits that you get. If it's a stern rake, you double the hull hits that you get, so it's a very useful thing. It only comes into play if you're shooting at the hull, though. If you're shooting at the rigging, it's no bonus. So if you do have a chance to rake, you usually want to shoot at the hull in order to take advantage of that.
Gentlemen, I'm going to step away here for just 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
All right, I moved him back to where he started there. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yep,
Actually, I was
absolutely.
one further.
I was I understood it, but in a different capacity. I was thinking about the ability to fire, not about the fact that the cannonballs could go straight down the ship and stuff.
Yeah, that's what it's modeling in reality. I was thinking when you said if it's he can shoot at you, but you can't shoot at him. Usually that's true. The only time it's not true is if they're adjacent to each other. So let's say he's right there. I'm going to move up robust one more. So if it's like this, now the friendship does still have a rake, but the robust would actually have a partial broadside shot that he could fire defensively before that rake happened. So even if that's the case, it's still considered a rake.
Yeah, in the first example where you had his ship up against your ship, that's considered crossing the T pretty much, right?
It's a rake. Yeah. There's no crossing the T isn't really something that happened in fleet battles at this point. A lot of times it's I think he may refer to that in the rules actually. It's a lot of times people use that term crossing the T to talk about actually when they're talking about just a rake like this on a sort of a ship to ship level. Crossing the T really actually refers to what they were able to do later on, like in World War I and World War II, where you had ships with turrets where they could all train their guns on one ship, and they had better communication between ships, so they could kind of mass the firepower all together. In the Age of Sail, you just don't have that because they didn't have turrets here, so they didn't have ships in the rear of the line that could actually train their guns all on the same target at the same time. And of course, communication was pretty bad. We were just using signal flags and little messenger boats, so it was very, very difficult to coordinate all that. But in terms of just game terms of that kind of move, it's a rake, and it's just a roll on that rake table, and that's how you resolve that.
Cool, thanks.